Hey guys, welcome back to part 2. In this part we're going to start off by fitting these Fidmonda axles that I bought that were nice and cheap and see how they go. Okay, so we got all the links and the axles mounted with the stock links. Doesn't look too bad. I was hoping for a bit more length on the back this way. Also at the front, the angle of this front shock is not very straight, it's sort of angled forwards a little bit, and that's as straight as I can get the front axle. Really, it needs to rotate that way a little bit, and the back one is rotated forward a little bit, but that's fine. I don't mind that because it just gives it a better drive shaft angle. We've got a decent amount of movement front and back. The one issue that we do have, we've gone with a 3-link front suspension setup, so the movement on the axle is pretty good, but if you watch this shock here, there's an awful lot of lateral movement in the axle, which I'm not overly happy with. With this 3-link setup, there's nowhere to put an axle mounted servo on there, so I was having to use this TRX4 brass thing upside down, which does have space for a servo to screw under there, but again it sticks out a long way. It's quite a long way forward of the axle, so I got this 3D printed servo mount, which does fit on top of the axle there to allow you to fit a servo, and as a result you can get 2 links in here and make it into a 4-link setup. So I think we're going to try that because I'm not overly keen on the way this 3-link thing's working out. It does mean these are all the links that came with the kit. I didn't have another one to make it into a 4-link, so I've had to have a little look through the parts bin, and I've come up with, I had some of these rods, just an M4, what is it, it's M4 by 60 steel rods. I found some angled ball ends. I managed to make up a couple of these. I'm sure you can see that there. So we've got an angle that way, an angle that way. So having the 2 together, those 2 are going to fit into the servo mount there, and then the other ends are going to go to the frame. We'll get rid of the pallard mount and this bit, and we'll try just a 4-link setup and see if that works. I had to get my extra length on the rear. I found these extra long rod ends. In fact, I've got 2 different kinds. I've got metal ones which are longer. Well, they're longer than the standard link by a little bit, and then I've got these white ones. They are quite a bit longer, about 10mm longer than the stock ones. So I think we're going to try these on one end of all 4 of the rear links, try and give it a bit more length. So we're going to show how to change your shock spring position from the regular way to the droop setting. On these ones it's very easy. You unscrew the actual shaft from the rod ends, and then unscrew the body of the shock from the top rod ends. Oh, there you go. So there's the spring. This is the softest one available. We may have to cut them down a little bit, but we'll see for the time being. If I just loosen that a little bit so the seals are loose, and then you should be able to poke the shaft out. And then we simply put the spring on the shaft. Goes on that way around. Put the piston back in. Screw it back onto the top eye. This is the trickiest part. You have to pull the shaft out. You could always hold this with some short pliers or something, that might be easier. And then screw the shaft back into that bottom one. And now, we have to do the collar back up. So now it sits nice and low, but you can still get the axial articulation as needed. I've already done the other side, so you still have articulation, but not quite as much, because the piston can only go down to probably there, because then the rest of the compressed springs underneath it. So I may end up either cutting those springs down or getting some longer shocks. These are 100mm. I might go for some like 120s or 130s to see if I can get more articulation. It's not a terrible amount, it's reasonable. So yeah. So there we go, we got it almost ready to run. Got the electrics in, so we've got a second hand 1060 SC, second hand GT5 receiver, got the second hand TRX4 gearbox, second hand pinion, second hand motor, second hand random cheapo servo, and a little 1.3 amp hour second hand battery to go along with the second hand drive shafts and the second hand bumper at the front, which I've now cut down slightly. And yeah, it's actually turned out alright. It's got these big wheels on it. Again, I have no idea what make these wheels are, but they're quite beefy. They're about 120-ish, 130-ish millimeters high. So we've got an absolute ton of ground clearance. It's about 75mm to the skid. The wheelbase has turned out pretty decent as well. We got nearly 13.5 inches wheelbase between the centres, which is about what I was looking for. The stance is looking pretty good. And we do still have a decent amount. It will still articulate even with those droop settings. So we've got the RPM rod ends at that end, the long ones. Still got the short ones on the back, so we could even extend that wheelbase a little bit more by replacing those rear short rod ends. But for the time being, I think it's good as is. I did end up mounting the battery on this skid. There is holes in the skid already to accept the little Velcro strap, but at some point in the future I would like to relocate that battery. There's a nice spot at the front here where it could sit between the chassis rails and top of the servo there, which would bring the weight forward. So that will be something that's probably going to happen in the future. So we started masking up the body, but I don't have the paint to paint it yet. I haven't decided on the colour scheme quite yet either. To get the body sitting where it needed to sit, I had to cut down the chassis slightly. Just cut a little bit off the front there, and we had to cut the front bumper down slightly as well. Now the body does sit on there pretty much the way I wanted it to. So yeah, just a bit of paint and she's ready to run.